mentioned that like Purple Rain had kind of already gotten started, and I'll pull it up for those who don't know what the cover looks like. What tracks did you sort of work on for that album?
Well, it's hard to say with any specificity in some sense because we were simultaneously making a movie along with
Hmm.
making this album. What that means is that some things were done and in the can. Darling Nikki was done, mixed, finished, never touched again. But other things kind of changed. He played around quite a bit with The Beautiful Ones and Computer Blue. When I joined him, he had just done the famous August 3rd, 1983 show at First Avenue in
Hmm.
Minneapolis. And it was recorded in a mobile recording truck. David Z was the recording engineer. So one of the first bits of engineering I did with Prince is we took those large 14-inch reels with the whole live show on it and cut out individual songs, put them on smaller reels so that we could add overdubs to them and continue working. There were just some embellishments that needed to happen on things like I Would Die for You and Baby I'm a Star and um, Beautiful Ones, things like that. So we went back and forth on a number of different records. The song "Take Me With You" was done entirely out at Sunset Sound. Um, Purple Rain itself was done partially on stage at that First Avenue show, but there were other embellishments that Prince added afterward in post production, and I can't remember exactly what they all were. Same thing with When Doves Cry. That was completed out at Sunset Sound in Los Angeles, but editing and things like that happened afterward. You'd want to release a single version, and then there'd be an album version. Sometimes he'd want to do an extended, longer version. So we puttered around on that album quite a bit. Uh,
Right. Yeah. And that's actually, I wanted to ask sort of like, what was the timeline of that whole project like? Because of course you got the movie and the record, and it sounds like I guess it was going on at the same time. And I wanted to ask about the movie. Um, did you like, were you ever on set? Like, did you ever see them filming it at all? Or
I was on set nearly every day because I was providing the tapes, the quarter-inch playback tapes for the Nagra tape machine that was used when we did musical scenes, and
Mm.
also because Prince needed me while he was on set to be back at the studio preparing certain pieces for one thing or another. So I was constantly going back and forth on the set. Um, there was a sound engineer who was responsible for bringing the Nagra and playing back, but I was responsible for bringing those tapes and, of course, setting up the playback system for the live concert scenes. Some at First Avenue, we were able to book the facility to shoot parts of the movie, and of course his stage crew at that time, the home stage crew, was myself and one other person. Hawkeye was his name, Rick Hendrickson, but it was just the two of us. So to set up all Prince's gear and the mics and everything like that, I was part of all that. We had to do some pickup scenes out in Los Angeles in the springtime of '84, and I was part of that as well, working on a
Nice.
soundstage in LA. So yeah, I was there. I was there contributing in
That's cool.
whatever way that I could. Uh, on,
Yeah.
on the Purple Rain album, he thanked a lot of people, and I was one of the people he thanked, and thanked them for specific contributions. And he thanked me for my energy. I remember one moment we were out in Los Angeles. It would have been January, February, maybe, doing pickup scenes for the movie. We were at the Complex studio. So we had to make the Complex soundstage look like First Avenue. And a band was on stage and there was fog machines for that particular scene. I don't remember what the song was, but there were fog machines. Fog machines leave an oily residue on the stage. So Prince
Mm.
was slipping on stage, and he complained about it. He couldn't keep his grip with. He needed the fog, and I remember standing there and just realizing I got something, and I ran out to the front, and there were planters out there, and I grabbed up handfuls of dirt Came running back in and just threw dirt on the stage, this dark brown dirt that wouldn't show with the black stage covering. I just threw the dirt there. And it just seemed like the right thing to do. My boss needed something and I did it. And I learned later from his operations manager, Alan Leeds, that he approved of that sort of proactive thinking. If there's a problem, don't suggest a solution. Don't ask if you can solve it. If there's a problem, just do it. Just do it. Deal.
Hmm.
It worked, and he was happy with that. Little things like that. He appreciated that extra effort.
Yeah. And I sort of going back to the music side, I did want to ask, because When Doves Cry is sort of famous for not having any bass on the track. Do you sort of know how that decision came to be to not have bass on the song?
Just trial and error. The original version of that song was very heavy, distorted guitars and distorted timbres. It was a big, heavy thing. I think Prince may have been aiming for something that was a cousin of Purple Rain. In other words, a rock song more than anything that was a pop song. So it
Hmm.
was pretty heavy, but the real heavy timbres just did not go with the lyrical message. This is what it sounds like when doves cry. Distorted guitars don't sound anything like doves. So at some
Yeah.
point he realized that this distortion is all wrong. Strip it all back, keep the chord changes, keep the drum pattern, and make it a lighter, more percussive arrangement. After he made it a lighter, more percussive arrangement and added his vocal and the counter melody, he realized no need for bass. There's no role for bass. In fact, bass would actually drag it back down. You have to keep it
Hmm.
kind of light. So he just muted. He put bass on it, but then he muted the bass and didn't use it.
That's cool. Yeah. And, you know, overall, Purple Rain for me would be my favorite Prince album, which, might be a cliche choice, but I'm not afraid to pick an artist's like best-selling album as my favorite because, the reason why it sold so much was because the songs are so good. It's like that you don't skip any song on that album. And it because When Doves Cry and Let's Go Crazy were both number one hits. Purple Rain, I think, hit like number two on the Hot 100. It was like a defining album of the 80s. So, like how does it feel to see how acclaimed it is and know that like you played a role in the making of it?
Yeah, it feels very proud. I feel very proud. Um, Rolling Stone magazine released the second edition of their 500 greatest albums of all time. I think they came out in
Yeah.
2022, and I'm proud to have two albums in the top 50. Number 8 was Purple Rain, and number 42 was Sign of the Times. Sign of the Times was considered Prince's other masterpiece. I couldn't agree more, and I worked on both of them, and I'm very
Mhm.
proud to have been associated with him during a very fertile and productive period in his life.